In 2017, the SIG Sauer P320 won the U.S. Army's XM17 Modular Handgun System competition. Adopted as the full-size M17 and compact M18, P320 became the U.S. military standard sidearm, replacing the Beretta M9. The P320 has also been adopted by U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, as well as state and local police agencies. Foreign militaries and law enforcement, including Canadian Special Operations Forces and the Norwegian Police Service, have also selected the P320 as their sidearm of choice. Hello there, this is the Range Ronin, and this chapter in the Range Ronin Chronicles does not focus on the SIG Sauer M17. Rather, it is about the smaller counterpart, the M18, and which is the civilian version. So, if you will, stick with me, because I'm going to tell you all about one. So, out of 26 variations available for the SIG Sauer P320, why the M18, you might ask? And that is a good question. The answer to that question is both simple and complex. In 2014, the SIG Sauer P320 was both designed and introduced to the general public. I was not reviewing firearms at that time, and many reviewers produced hard copy, soft copy, and videos of the pistol. Many reviews touted the SIG P320 as the handgun to own, with the main features being the modularity due to the FCU, the fire control system, of which could be installed in several sizes and versions of the pistol. At that time, I simply considered it as another Glock clone, and my life continued without one. In 2017, the SIG Sauer P320 won the U.S. Army's XM17 Modular Handgun System competition, and the P320 became known as the M17, with a compact version becoming known as the M18. It was not long before the P320 was discovered to have a drop safety issue if the firearm was dropped at a specific angle, potentially causing it to discharge. Among other changes, the military demanded that a thumb safety be installed on the M17 and M18. The civilian P320, however, did not receive the thumb safety upgrade, with the exception of the P320X Full California Compliant, a 10-round version. The compact version remained without a thumb safety, and does so to this day. It reached a point where lawsuits began and issues of drop firing, or shooting its user in the leg while holstered, have continued sporadically, with at least 6 departments removing the P320 from service. My interest in the P320 dropped as well. However, since the installation of a thumb safety and other changes, the military has not reported drop fire issues with the M17 and M18. Maybe it was time for me to look into both, or at least one of them. My interest led me to the M18, the compact version, also known as the carry version. While I am not in the position to purchase the commercially available M18, my local gun club and range happened to have several P320s as rental firearms. Among those choosings was the M18. If you have been to this channel before, you know that I'm not a big fan of tactical. I am a conservative, and I prefer my firearms to be conservative as well. Personally, I have no use for many of the tactical features found on most pistols these days, but I do understand the needs of others for such. I also felt that the M18 might appeal to those who prefer compact over full size, but which has the tactical touches available should one want them. So, with that said, let me dive into the features of this commercial version of the SIG Sauer M18. The front end of the slide is contoured and beveled as much as possible to not only reduce the front profile, but to also aid in holstering the firearm. A dovetailed front single dot night sight adorns the top of the slide. The sight is drift adjustable for windage. Front serrations are available for press checking or other slide operations, and which are nicely cut and angled for a near-perfect purchase. Traveling rearward, a flared and oversized ejection port helps for ejected cases to take leave from the pistol after firing, and are assisted quite nicely by the internal ejector. Extracting those spent cases, however, is left to a substantial external extractor. That 3.9-inch barrel that, incidentally, is a fine length for a compact carry-type pistol, and, in this case, is chambered for the 9x19mm cartridge, as indicated on the barrel's chamber. A captive full-length guide rod with dual recoil spring takes care of the task of keeping the slide locked up when needed and cycled when demanded. When in full battery, there needs to be a means to determine if a round is chambered or not. The P320, M17, and M18 loaded chamber indicator is a spring-loaded device that is located in the slide assembly. The LCI extends from the breech face, and when a cartridge is loaded into the chamber, the LCI will protrude upward at the rear of the ejection port through the top of the slide. The LCI can be seen visually by the shooter in normal daylight or physically felt in limited visibility conditions. I did not notice until I returned home and viewed the images that the CLI was up on the M18 I was reviewing. I know for a fact that the pistol was unloaded at the time that I took the pictures. Reviewing both closed breech and open breech photos showed the CLI in the up position. Also, in this close-up during the shooting session, it clearly shows the CLI remaining up with the slide locked back when the CLI should be down. Possibly, this is because of accumulated debris over many rounds being fired, and that has caused the return spring to not be able to return the CLI to its normal position. I don't know, but I am going to inquire about that with the range. The rear of the slide is as nicely serrated as the front, giving the user ample surfaces with which to manipulate the slide. Above those rear serrations is a very substantial rear sight and plate. The P320 M18 comes standard with SIG Light night sights and a removable night sight rear plate. The slide is optic ready and directly compatible with the Romeo 1 Pro. Note that there is no top mounting screw or screws for the plate. Note also the wide rear night sight. The reason for that wide rear night sight is that the mounting screw for the plate is attached on the inside of the slide to the night sight. Removal of a number of critical parts inside of the slide must be performed to remove the sight and plate, and conversely, be installed after 1. Replacing the rear sight, or 2. Replacing the sight plate with an optic unit. As mentioned, Romeo 1 Pro is a drop-in unit and is a direct replacement for the sight plate. Having covered the slide in substantial detail, it's time to move down to the frame and component parts thereof. At the front is a 1913 accessory rail for attaching your favorite rail goodies. Moving to the rear, there are 3 controls, 2 of which are ambidextrous on this model: thumb safety and the slide lock. The takedown, or slide release as some might call it, is left side only, and operates in the same manner as most takedown assemblies of this type. Roll down to release the slide from the frame, and roll back up to lock the slide to the frame. Both the slide lock and thumb safety do their job well. I found that the slide lock can be easily manipulated with either the thumb of the support hand or forefinger of the shooting hand for right-handed operators, as I am. They would be just as easily manipulated by a lefty. The thumb safety snicks nicely into either position, safe or fire, without changing one's grip on the pistol. The slide lock lever is also within easy reach. The slide release lever is not within reach of the shooting hand for a right-handed operator, but if a right-handed operator uses a thumb forward support hand position, thumb may find its way on top of the slide release lever, and which, during a fast fire event, could cause the slide release lever to move down during the firing cycle. I have not heard of any issues with this, however. The magazine button can be transferred to the right side to accommodate a left-handed shooter. It is positive in its operation and did not pose a problem with unintended magazine droppage during my short time at the range with it. It does take a slight change in grip and some thumb pressure to release a magazine. When pressed fully, however, magazines drop with no problem. The trigger on this example is nicely curved and very friendly to the finger. Nested within the sculpted trigger guard, trigger action was surprising to me. Pull was light, but not too light. Trigger resistance was heavy, but not too heavy. Mushy, but not too mushy. Brake was crisp and positive. Trigger pull distance was longer than I expected, but very workable. The trigger is excellent in its own sort of way, a bit different from a Glock or a Springfield Armory XD trigger. To me, it was kind of in between the two. I found it very enjoyable to operate. Getting to the grip area, I found it to be just about right for my hand. The grip girth and angle and length made it very pleasurable to grip. The undercut at the rear of the trigger guard allowed for a high grip, while a mild undercut at the top rear of the frame kept the hand from wandering too high during shooting. The texture of the grip, while mild, is enough to keep the hand in place, and with my sport hand having enough real estate to support, I found myself not having to change my grip as often as I sometimes do when evaluating a handgun. Some have mentioned that the texture is too mild for them. You would have to see, or feel, for yourself to determine what's what. Besides, this was one of the intentions of having a modular system. Pop out the FCU, install it into a different frame that is suitable to your hand size, and move on with the mission. Now, about that magazine. I only had one 17-round unit to work with, but the M18 does ship with 3 magazines, one 17-round magazine and 2 21-round magazines. The last feature to present is the overall pistol itself. Commercially available M18 mimics the military counterpart with the Coyote 10 colored finish. While I am not a fan of Coyote 10, I must say that it is nicely applied and does look nice. There have been complaints regarding the quick wearing of the finish on the military versions, but no complaints regarding corrosion. I would assume that the military version would undergo far more adverse treatment than what you would subject it to, but I may be incorrect in my thinking. Although this M18 is a range rental, the wear on the finish is not out of line with the role that it is playing. Everything about this M18 says that it should make somebody a fine pistol. With that said, let me get through the maintenance aspect real quick, and then see what this M18 can do under actual firing conditions.
Wait, Ronan, what happened with the chamber-loaded indicator problem?
You thought I forgot about that, didn't you? Well, I didn't. I contacted the range and told them what I had observed. They pulled the M18 and sure enough, there was absolutely no spring tension that would force the CLI down if a round was not chambered. The correct operation was verified with a range rental M17. It looks like this M18 will be seeing some repair. Now, let's get to that maintenance segment, and a very short segment it is. One of the greatest strengths of the M18 is that it can be disassembled without pulling the trigger. Even better, the pistol must have the magazine removed and the slide lock back to even rotate the takedown lever. This provides a layer of safety compared to other striker-fired semi-autos in service. While I am not going to take up your time explaining how to disassemble and reassemble the M18, I will steer you to the operator's manual that comes with the pistol, and which can be downloaded from the SIG Sauer website. I have placed a link in the description section below this video for your convenience. Now, let's get to that shooting part. With an over-the-counter introduction completed, some range time with the M18 was needed, and a few short steps took me there. I had one 17-round magazine to work with, and decided that 15 rounds in the magazine would allow me to shoot 5 strings of 3 rounds each, with the first magazine used to figure out what the M18 was telling me. So let me pick up on the shooting session. You will see notes throughout the session, and I'll provide a brief synopsis at the end of the session. With regard to reliability, the M18 exhibited absolutely no failures of any kind. For accuracy, once I dialed in the point of aim, the M18 was showing me its true potential as a defensive firearm. For shootability or ease of handling, while I believe the rear sights are dismal, triggers surprised me. Although exhibiting a long trigger travel, the journey was smooth and the brakes surprisingly crisp with no over travel. The sights on this M18, however, were regulated enough for me to obtain a 6 o'clock POA at a combat distance of 7 yards. Feeling very good in the hand, a nod to excellent ergonomics, the M18 was starting to become a natural pointer. Felt recoil was mild to the hand, and muzzle lift easily controlled with a proper grip. One of my prime concerns when handling any firearm is safety. The M18, as does the M17, incorporates a thumb safety. One interesting characteristic of this feature is that the thumb safety can be set to the up safe position with the slide lock back. A fully loaded magazine can be inserted, the slide lock released, allowing the slide to go into full battery, and the pistol remains in a safe mode, unable to fire unless the thumb safety is in the down, off-safe position. My rating for the M18 is a 5 out of 5 in all categories. The M18 appears to be a perfectly serviceable duty gun It has proven to be reliable, accurate, and quite shootable. The pistol handles well, and the controls are laid out functionally for both right and left-hand operation. The M18 is of a useful size. It is big enough to shoot well and has an adequate round capacity that should please most, yet it is compact enough to carry, concealed or not. The overall feel of the pistol in my hand is better than a number of other contemporary pistols. That said, the M18's iron sights and the picture they provide will probably work for most operators. The rear sights, however, I find small, and with normal ambient lighting, not bright enough for my eyes to pick out. But my eyes are old and weak, and you younger folks may not have an issue with them. The trigger is serviceable enough to aid in holding the pistol steady throughout the long but smooth trigger pull until the striker is released. This helps greatly in the accuracy department, of which the M18 proved to do whatever my hands told it to do. Like any good soldier, it follows orders well, even when the operator's hands may not be so correct when giving orders. The weight is distributed well in the hand, and in the grand scheme of pistols, it is fine. The shape of the trigger itself is good, and will be more conducive to good shooting for less experienced shooters than some of the alternative pistols, with trigger safeties and more complexity in the shape of the trigger shoe. The thumb safety on this M18 is positive enough in its engagement, and small enough that it is unlikely to inadvertently disengage during carry. Some shooters may find the safety somewhat too small in shape to easily disengage while maintaining a firing grasp or during the draw stroke. I do prefer a larger safety lever on the left side of the pistol. But looking at the available space, SIG had competing priorities. If the lever was enlarged too much, it might interfere with the slide release, or be accidentally engaged during recoil by a shooter with a poor grip. The modular nature of the SIG M18 is one key feature that sets it apart from much of the market. This simple modularity is one area that will be well received by military and civilians alike, due to the flexibility it provides for tailoring the gun to different shooters' hands and purposes for the pistol. The M18's fire control unit is the only serialized part, and since the fire control unit is the serialized firearm, the rest of the pistol is simply just parts. The M18 allows for a direct mounting option for SIG optics or the Leupold Delta Point Pro. Although I would not be one to run an optic on this pistol, I do like that this can be done without an additional mounting plate. The M18, I believe, would make a fine carry, a shootable package with robust safety features. Replacing the Beretta M9 as a service pistol, only time and use will tell if the M18 handles abuse, neglect, and weather, as well as the Beretta did. The M1911 served for 74 years, from 1911 to 1985, with a Beretta M9 officially serving only 32 years, from 1985 to 2017. If the M18 serves as long as either of our last two service pistols, it could be in service into at least the 2050s. So far, it seems that the M17 and M18 is serving our men and women in uniform well, and it would seem that the commercial version would serve us civilians as well. Personally, and if I was to choose a SIG P320 as a personal defense assistant, the M18 over the standard P320 would be my choice, simply because of the added security of a thumb safety. But that is my choice, and it may not agree with your choice, and that is fine. Well, my friends and viewers, that closes up today's chapter in the Range Running Chronicles. I hope that you find my way of doing things informative enough to return to the channel for my other firearm reviews. Until we meet again, and I hope that we do, be vigilant, be armed, and be safe out there.